Hi guys, this is our first video in our will series. I'm going to start with the basics of drawing up and drafting your will. The first thing I want to discuss is why it's important to have a will. A lot of people feel they don't have enough assets to have a will, or there's always going to be more time to do it at a later stage. And the truth is, life's unexpected. It's not just old people and sick people that pass away. Accidents happen to young people as well. Every one of us knows someone that died at an untimely point in their lives and how it affected the people around them. Not having a will causes serious stress and a lot of uncertainty in the lives of the people you leave behind. So it is an important aspect, one of the most basic things that should be looked at in your financial planning. The first thing I want you to keep in mind when drafting a will is keep it simple. As simple as possible. The more complicated the will becomes, the more involved the bequests you make to beneficiaries and the more conditions you try and place on people, the less likely it is to be able to enforce that will, and the more likely it is to be able to be contested in a court. The second thing about drafting a will that's very important is that get it done by a professional. There are too many simple administrative mistakes that can cause a will to be invalid. A will must be signed on every page with original signatures, and at the end of the document meaning not just on the last page, the bottom of the page, but where the will actually ends. The second thing that is very important is that anyone that has written out a will or assisted in drafting a will or signed as a witness in the will can then not actually receive any benefit from that estate. This is important because a lot of people think, I'm just going to write out my will for myself and my husband. Effectively, if a wife were to write out their joint wills for herself and her husband, she would have actually disinherited herself, technically speaking. Now, there is a way to get around it through an expensive legal process to try and get the testator and the testatrix's intention through a court, but not necessarily all estates have the money to go through that process. So get it done by a professional. Choosing your witnesses. Your witnesses are two people. Every will must be witnessed by two people. They must sign on every single page where the testator or the testatrix have signed. They do not need to understand or know what is in your will. All they do is confirm that you have signed in their presence. In other words, that if ever they are called to a court of law, that they can attest that you did actually sign that document. They don't need to know anything more than that. Never use someone that's going to be your executor or going to be one of your beneficiaries as a witness in your will. They also need to be over the age of 14 years old and competent to appear in a court of law. We're going to be discussing many topics throughout this series of wills, one of them being the appointment of trustees and guardians, especially where there's minor children involved. But I wanted to first start with these basic principles in drafting your will. So the question is, what happens if you don't have a will? If you don't have a will, a lot of people think that the state takes ownership of your possessions. That is not the case. I think the confusion might come in the term used for a deceased estate that does not have a will. It's called intestate succession. What intestate succession means, it means someone died without leaving a will and that their possessions and their estate will be inherited by their dependents according to a fixed formula in law. Now, the problem with this is it can delay the process of appointing an executor because you haven't nominated one yourself. The second thing that ends up happening is your assets or your wishes might not be met in terms of distribution. For example, one of the things that will happen is that it will be split evenly between your spouse and your children, or the greatest of 125,000 Rand for your remaining spouse. Now, in a lot of cases, the best thing to actually do is have your spouse inherit everything, and then at the death of the surviving spouse, have the children inherit. But you will have no control over that if you do not have a will in place. There are a lot of other implications which are best discussed with your certified financial planner, so please make an appointment to make sure that your will and your estate has been properly planned. Thank you.